right on top of my drainage zone. They thought they could just fill my property with water and drown me in paperwork. But what they didn't know was that the water they filled that pool with was about to drain their entire plan dry. Because that one little legal detail they ignored was the trap I had been waiting for all along. And when the rain came, everything and everyone started sinking. Hey guys, welcome back to HOA Stories. My name's Ryan. I live on the edge of a quiet suburban town, surrounded by green hills, nosy neighbors, and one overly powerful HOA board that thinks it owns the entire neighborhood. I own a small farm property. Half of it sits on a drainage easement, basically a legal strip of land meant to handle excess rainwater. It's boring, but important, because without it, my house could flood. Now, I've always followed the rules. Cut my grass, painted my mailbox, even attended a few of those mandatory HOA meetings, the ones where the president smiles like a politician and pretends to listen. But a few months ago, something strange happened. I came home after a weekend trip, and there it was. A giant blue pool sitting on my drainage system. Like, not beside it, on it. I thought maybe I was hallucinating, but no. They actually built it. Steel walls, fresh water, a ladder, even a drainage valve. And standing beside it, 3 HOA members holding clipboards like they just discovered fire. I walked right up to them. Can someone explain why there's a swimming pool on my property? HOA president: Oh, this isn't your property, Ryan. It's community land. We're enhancing the neighborhood experience. Enhancing? Right. So I pulled out my property deed. Showed her the easement lines. Clear as day, that land was mine, legally under my name. But she smirked. HOA president: Well, technically yes, but the HOA bylaws state that any area contributing to stormwater management is subject to shared development. Shared development. Translation: We do what we want. They told me the pool would benefit everyone. That it would increase property value. That I should be grateful. But here's the thing, that drainage zone wasn't designed to hold standing water. It was designed to move it. So the moment they filled that pool, they unknowingly created a massive legal violation. And me? I decided not to tell them. Yet. Because revenge tastes better when it's fully drained. For the next few weeks, I watched them celebrate. Neighbors came by to swim. Kids splashed around. The HOA even bragged about it in the community newsletter. Meanwhile, I quietly checked my contracts, county codes, and environmental ordinances. And oh boy, they were in trouble. You see, the HOA didn't file any permits with the county. They built that pool over a regulated drainage easement, which meant they were not just breaking HOA rules. They were breaking federal water management laws. I even called a friend who's a civil engineer. He looked at the pictures and said, Ryan, that thing's gonna blow out the first time it rains. So I waited. The sky turned dark one weekend. Heavy rain poured for 2 days straight. And just like my friend said, the water had nowhere to go. By day 2, the pool started overflowing. Water spilled down into my backyard. Soil eroded. Fence posts started leaning. The HOA was scrambling, running around with buckets and hoses. And me? I was sitting on my porch with coffee, watching my enhanced neighborhood experience turn into a mudslide. Then came the call. HOA president: Panicked, Ryan, we have a situation. The pool, it's leaking. Can we reroute the drainage through your land temporarily? Me, smiling, Oh, through my land? The one you said wasn't mine. She went silent. That's when I made my move. I contacted the county inspector. Sent every photo, every construction date, every line of documentation. 2 days later, county officials showed up. They shut down the entire HOA pool project, declared it a code violation, and issued a hefty fine. Apparently, the HOA didn't just build illegally, they also diverted the stormwater system away from a protected flow route, which meant the HOA was now legally liable for any property damage caused by the flood. And guess whose property was affected first? Mine. When the president showed up at my door again. Her tone was a lot softer. HOA president: Ryan, maybe we can work something out. You don't want to make this worse, right? Me: Oh, don't worry. It's not worse. It's perfectly legal. Because while they were busy breaking rules, I was busy building a paper trail. Every text, every notice, every repair estimate, all of it. filed and time-stamped. And now, the HOA had to pay for every dollar of soil repair, drainage reconstruction, and landscaping restoration. The pool, torn down, gone. But the best part, the president herself had to appear in front of the county hearing. And she couldn't stop saying the same line over and over again. We didn't know about the drainage clause. Yeah. That's because you didn't read the legal trap. Now every time it rains, I can't help but smile, watching that patch of land where the pool once stood. Perfectly dry, perfectly lawful. And for once, the HOA actually improved something on my property. Their mistake made my land more valuable than ever. If your HOA tried pulling a stunt like this on your property, would you let it slide, or would you let the rain handle it for you? Cloud with rain. Tell me in the comments. I'm dying to hear what kind of improvements your HOAs tried to pull. After the county shut down the pool, I thought that was the end of it. But HOAs don't just admit defeat. They regroup, they gossip, and then they attack. It started with whispers in the neighborhood Facebook group. Stuff like, Ryan's lawsuit is costing the community thousands. He's selfish. It was just a pool. He's the reason our dues might go up. Classic HOA propaganda. They lose, so they spin it. At first, I ignored it. But then, a certified letter showed up in my mailbox. It was from the HOA's attorney. Thick envelope, sealed tight, full of arrogance. Inside, a cease and desist notice accusing me of defamation and interference with community development. They were threatening to sue me for exposing their illegal project. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. But after that laugh, came something else, anger. Because the letter wasn't just a bluff. They'd copied the county, the board, and every homeowner on the email chain. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was a public humiliation attempt. So, I did what any rational person would do. I lawyered up. My attorney, Megan, was sharp, calm voice, but eyes that could slice through concrete. When she read the HOA's letter, she smirked. Megan, let me guess, they forgot to include the part where they broke the law? Me. Exactly. Megan, then relax. We'll let them hang themselves with their own paperwork. And oh boy, did she mean it. We started digging deeper. Every HOA rule, every amendment, every permit they claimed to have. Turns out, they had created a fake subcommittee authorization, signed by only 2 board members. They'd forged approval for the pool project, bypassing the other members entirely. Illegal construction, forgery, liability fraud. This wasn't a civil case anymore. This was criminal territory. Megan drafted our response. Short, sharp, and deadly. Our client will not cease nor desist, as your claims are baseless. Any further attempt to harass him will result in a counterclaim for fraudulent misrepresentation, property damage, and retaliatory action. And she sent it straight to their lawyer, with copies to the county and the insurance underwriter. A week later, the HOA president showed up at my driveway again. This time without her clipboard. She was shaking. HOA president, Ryan, we don't have to take this to court. Let's be civil about it. Me, civil? You built a swimming pool on a flood zone and forged signatures. You think that's civil? She tried to spin it. Tried to play the sympathy card. It was meant for the community. You're making everyone suffer for one mistake. But her tone cracked. She knew she was losing. And then she dropped a bomb. You think you've won, but the HOA has friends at the county office. You'll regret pushing this. That's when I realized this wasn't about rules anymore. It was about power. Days passed. Then weeks. The HOA stopped talking publicly, but something felt off. Like they were planning something. One evening, I saw 2 guys in reflective vests near the old pool site. They weren't county workers, no logos, no ID. Just 2 random guys with shovels and a small bulldozer. I stepped out with a flashlight. Me, hey, what are you doing out here? Worker, just soil testing for the HOA redevelopment. Redevelopment? They weren't even allowed to touch that site. I pulled out my phone. Started recording. The guys panicked and left, one of them cursing as he climbed into the truck. By the next morning, the HOA newsletter announced a new community improvement project. Right on the same location. They renamed it Community Reflection Pond. Yeah, Reflection Pond. A fancy way of saying Illegal Pool, Part 2. That's when Megan went nuclear. She filed a motion to escalate our case. Now it wasn't just about drainage, it was about intentional violation of a county cease order. And once again, the county got involved. Inspectors arrived. And this time, they weren't smiling. They fined the HOA again. Only this time, the fine wasn't a few $1,000s. It was $40,000. because the workers had broken the surface seal of a protected water management system. The HOA's insurance company refused to cover it, because the project was done after a legal stop notice. That meant the HOA board had to pay out of pocket. And guess who they blamed? Me. Now I was officially the enemy. Neighbors stopped waving. Kids stopped coming near my yard. The HOA even held a special meeting where they discussed disciplinary action against me for being a disruptive homeowner. I wasn't invited, of course. But one of my neighbors, an older guy named Frank, secretly recorded the meeting and sent it to me. And what I heard made my blood boil. HOA President, Ryan's causing unnecessary chaos. If he continues, we can invoke property easement reclamation. Board member, you mean take back part of his land? HOA President, exactly. We'll claim it as shared property for community infrastructure. They were plotting to steal my land. That's when I decided to turn their own tactics against them. For the next few nights, I stayed up reading the HOA bylaws, page by page. And that's when I found it. Buried deep in section 14.3. An overlooked clause written in dull legal language. In the event of continued violation of stormwater management codes, the HOA forfeits authority over the affected area until corrective action is verified by county inspection. Meaning, since they violated the drainage law twice, they lost control over that land. Permanently. They couldn't touch it, couldn't reclaim it, couldn't even step foot on it without county permission. That was the legal trap, the one they never saw coming. I printed the clause, framed it, and mailed copies to every homeowner in the community. By the end of that week, half the neighborhood turned on the board. Because now they realized, all those HOA dues they'd been paying, they were funding illegal projects. The pressure grew. The president called an emergency meeting. I went this time. Legally, they couldn't stop me. When I walked in, the room went silent. HOA President, Ryan, we've all had a rough few months, but you've cost this neighborhood tens of thousands of dollars. Me, no. You cost this neighborhood money. I just turned the lights on. Then she made one last desperate move. HOA President, if you don't drop the complaint, we'll file a civil counterclaim and seek damages. But before I could even reply, the county inspector who'd been overseeing the case walked in. He stood beside me and spoke loud enough for the room to hear. Inspector, actually, the HOA won't be filing anything. As of this morning, your operating license is suspended pending investigation. Silence. Dead silence. You could feel the air leave the room. The president just sat there, frozen. After that, it was over. The county officially revoked the HOA's authority to manage community projects. A new independent property management firm was brought in. The old board members were fined, and some even faced criminal charges for falsifying permits. And me? My property was declared legally exempt from future HOA modifications. They could never touch it again. I didn't just win a case. I won freedom. But here's where it gets interesting. About a month later, I got another letter. This time from a private investigator. Apparently, the HOA's president had filed a complaint claiming I had intentionally sabotaged the pool to cause damage. The investigator visited, looked at the site, checked the drainage system, and guess what he found? A hidden outlet valve installed by the HOA's contractor. A literal hole that redirected excess water into my property line. They had been trying to set me up, blame the flooding on me, to invalidate my claims. I handed that report straight to Megan, and within days, she filed for damages. The HOA now owed me compensation for property destruction and legal harassment. And that's how the $40,000 fine turned into nearly $100,000 in settlements. The neighborhood changed after that. People who once avoided me now waved again. Some even apologized. Others just quietly whispered, "Good job, man," when passing by. And the best part? That old pool site, the one they tried to turn into their pride project, is now a fenced-off drainage zone with a giant county sign that reads, "Protected area, no construction permitted." Every time I see that sign, I grin. Because that drainage zone they mocked me for is now my biggest victory. Still, there's one thing I learned through all this. HOAs don't break rules because they're stupid. They break them because they think no one will notice. Until someone like me decides to fight back. So yeah, maybe I became the villain in their story. But at least now, I'm the villain with receipts. And as I sit on my porch today, watching the sunset reflect off that dry, perfect patch of land, I think about how close they came to taking it all. All it took was one line in a contract, one ignored clause, one legal trap, and they buried. If your HOA tried to frame you for something they did, would you fight back in court, or expose them in public for everyone to see? Tell me below. I want to know what kind of revenge by compliance you'd pull off Collision. After the lawsuit settled, the neighborhood went quiet. Too quiet. No HOA flyers. No rule violation letters. No urgent community meetings. Just silence. For the first time in years, I could mow my grass without someone timing me from across the street. But silence in a neighborhood like mine never lasts long, because secrets don't stay buried forever. One humid afternoon, I was out behind the old pool site, checking the soil after a heavy rain. The county had finished sealing the ground months earlier, laid new drainage lines, flattened everything perfectly. But I noticed something strange. A small circular dent near the far edge of the property. It looked like the ground had caved in slightly, just enough to make a shallow bowl. I tapped my boot on it. Hello. That's when curiosity kicked in. I grabbed my shovel and started digging. The soil came up too easily, almost loose, like it had been disturbed before. A foot down, then two, and then, clank, metal. I brushed the dirt away with my hands, and saw the corner of a rusted steel plate, about 3 feet wide, bolted shut. It looked old, decades old. A maintenance hatch maybe. But here's the weird part. There were no records of any underground structure on this property. I checked the county maps before. Nothing. So why was there a sealed hatch under my drainage zone? I tried lifting it, no luck. It was bolted from the sides, and the screws were rusted solid. So I grabbed my drill, popped a few loose, and forced the plate open with a crowbar. The smell hit first. Old air. Damp. Like something that hadn't seen daylight in years. I aimed my flashlight down, and my heart stopped. There was a ladder, leading straight into darkness. Now, most people would call someone, but I'm not most people. I climbed down. The metal rungs creaked under my weight, and the air got colder the deeper I went. At the bottom, maybe 10 feet down, was a narrow corridor lined with concrete. It looked like a stormwater channel, but wider and cleaner. Too clean. Someone had maintained this recently. And at the end of the tunnel, there was a door, a heavy one, with faded yellow paint and stenciled letters that read, HOA Archives, authorized personnel only. My mind raced. Archives. Underground. Why would a homeowners association need a secret storage room under a drainage easement? I turned the handle. It groaned open. Inside were rows of metal cabinets, files stacked in plastic boxes, old ledgers, binders with names on the spines, and a faint buzzing sound, like a small generator or dehumidifier still running somewhere. Someone had been keeping this place alive. I started reading the labels. Property violations 1999 to 2003. Drainage zone compliance. Project Blue Water. Private. That last one caught my eye. I opened it. Inside were engineering diagrams, signatures, and, get this, HOA blueprints showing plans for an underground water retention experiment. And the site code matched my property. They'd been using my drainage easement as a testing ground. 4 stormwater management prototypes, funded not by the HOA alone, but by a local construction company that just happened to be owned by the HOA president's brother. It was all there. Invoices, backdated approvals, fake permits. They'd been funneling HOA dues into private side projects for almost 20 years. Every president, every board, signed off. And when one homeowner complained or asked too many questions, their name appeared in another folder. Non-compliant resident list. Next to each name was a note. Fines, warnings, even foreclosure potential written in red ink. I flipped the pages and saw my own name at the bottom. Dated 6 months before they built the pool. They'd targeted me long before I ever fought back. I felt sick. This wasn't pettiness. This was corruption. The HOA hadn't just overstepped. They'd been running a full-on kickback operation under the guise of community improvement. And the pool? Just another failed project they tried to hide in plain sight. The reflection pond. The land reclamation plan. All part of a paper trail meant to bury their experiments. Literally. I snapped photos of everything. Boxes. Documents. The vault door. And as I turned to leave, I heard footsteps. Slow. Echoing from the ladder above. Someone else was down there. I killed my flashlight and pressed against the wall. A beam of light swept across the tunnel. Then a voice. Hello. Who's down here? It was familiar. That sharp, controlling tone I'd heard too many times before. The HOA president. She climbed halfway down, shining her phone light around. HOA president, I know someone's here. This area is restricted. Me, quietly, you don't say. I stepped out of the shadows. She jumped, nearly dropping her phone. HOA president, Ryan, you can't be here. This is private property. Me, private? Under my property line. Her face went pale. I held up one of the folders. Me, you care to explain Project Blue Water? Or maybe the list of residents you tried to evict? She tried to grab the file. I pulled it back. Me, oh, don't worry. I've already sent copies to my lawyer. She froze. That's when I noticed the panic in her eyes wasn't just guilt. It was fear. HOA president, you don't understand. If those files get out, it's not just me. They'll come after you too. Me, who's they? She hesitated, looked toward the tunnel entrance. The developers, she whispered. The ones who built this place. The HOA was just the cover. Before I could press her for more, a metallic thud echoed from above. Then another. Someone closed the hatch. We both looked up. The sound of bolts locking into place. She gasped. Oh my God, they sealed it. Panic kicked in. I ran back toward the ladder and pushed against the hatch. Nothing. We were trapped. The president started pacing, mumbling. They said no one would find it. They said the site was inactive. I grabbed my phone. No signal. Underground, 10 feet of concrete between me and the world. Then I noticed a small red light blinking near one of the cabinets. A security camera. Still active. Someone was watching us. I pointed it out. Me, who has access to this feed? HOA president, the old management company, but they were dissolved years ago. Me, apparently not. We heard the faint hum of machinery. Air vents kicking on. The sound of water dripping somewhere deeper in the corridor. This wasn't just an archive. It was a full underground facility. We spent nearly an hour searching for another way out. Found nothing. Then, behind one of the cabinets, I noticed a narrow passage partially blocked by debris. Concrete cracked. Rebar bent outward. Like something had forced its way through years ago. We cleared it and crawled inside. The tunnel sloped downward. The air colder, heavier. At the end was a sealed steel door with a broken lock. I pushed it open. And what I saw made every hair on my neck stand up. Rows of blue drums filled with stagnant water. Each labeled, Treatment Batch C7. Pipes ran into the walls. And on the far side, a faded company logo. Blue Water Infrastructure, LLC. The same company from the invoices. And scattered across a workbench were testing reports, showing high levels of chemical runoff. They hadn't been testing drainage efficiency. They'd been dumping industrial waste into the stormwater system, right beneath our homes. The president backed away, whispering. They promised it was safe. They said it would evaporate. Me, you've been poisoning the neighborhood for years. She started crying. Not fake this time. Real tears. It wasn't supposed to go this far. It started with funding cuts. We just needed to keep the system running, then they offered to pay us. I didn't let her finish. Me, save it for court. I filmed everything. Every label, every drum, every signature. And as I zoomed in on one of the reports, I saw the date. Last month. This operation wasn't old. It was still active. That's when the vents shut off. The lights flickered and went dark. Then, a mechanical click. Water started trickling in from the lower pipes. Slow. Then faster. They were flushing the vault. Whoever was watching us was trying to destroy the evidence. And us with it. I yanked the president toward the tunnel. The water was ankle deep. Then knee deep. We climbed back up the ladder as fast as we could. I slammed my shoulder into the hatch again and again. Nothing. Then I remembered, the bolts were on the side, not the top. I reached for my drill still clipped to my belt, jammed the bit into the hinge, and started grinding. Sparks flew. Metal squealed. The president was screaming now. The water rising. Finally, clang. The hinge gave way. The hatch popped open. We burst out into daylight, gasping for air. I rolled onto the grass, completely soaked. The president lay beside me, shaking. And right then, a black SUV rolled up. 2 men stepped out. Suits, sunglasses, no words. They walked straight to the hatch, looked down into the flooding tunnel, and then back at us. One of them muttered into a radio. Archive compromised. Initiate cleanup. Then they left. No questions. No explanation. Just gone. By the time the county arrived hours later, the tunnel was sealed again. Concrete poured overnight. Equipment gone. Like it had never existed. But I still had my phone. And every photo backed up to the cloud. The county couldn't deny it now. Still, something told me this went deeper. Way deeper. Because when the investigators checked the site plans, they found 3 other drainage easements in the neighborhood, each connected by underground channels. And the blue drums, all traced back to Blue Water Infrastructure LLC, a shell company dissolved 10 years ago. Except it wasn't dissolved. It had simply changed its name to Suburban Sustain Group, the same environmental partner that funds half the HOAs in our county. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying what the president said. They'll come after you too. And for the first time, I believed her. Because this wasn't just about property lines anymore. It was about cover-ups, money, control. The HOA was just the mask. Behind it, someone much bigger was pulling the strings. Now I'm sitting here, looking out at my perfect little drainage zone. The grass is trimmed. The air smells clean. But every time I hear water running through those underground pipes, I can't help but wonder, what's still flowing down there? And who's still watching? If you found a secret vault under your neighborhood, filled with files, chemicals, and lies, would you expose it, or would you seal it and walk away? Comment below backhand index pointing down. I want to know how brave you'd be when the HOA secrets start flooding out droplet. After the flood, I thought things would quiet down. They didn't. By morning, the hatch had been sealed again. New concrete. Fresh paint. No sign there was ever a tunnel beneath my land. But I had proof. Photos. Videos. Documents. And one terrified HOA president who now refused to leave her house. I drove to her place the next day. She lived just 3 streets over, in one of those identical brick homes, white fence, fake flowers, picture-perfect suburbia. Her blinds were drawn. Front door locked. But I saw movement inside. I knocked. "President," I said. "We need to talk." No answer. I was about to leave when the door cracked open an inch. Her eyes peeked through. "HOA president, Ryan, you shouldn't be here." "Me, you think they're done with me? They sealed the vault overnight. Someone's covering this up." She shook her head. "You don't understand who you're dealing with." "Me, then help me understand." She hesitated, then opened the door. Inside, her living room looked like a crime board exploded. Files everywhere. Old HOA reports, property deeds, contractor names, maps with red pins connecting locations across the county. "Me, you've been digging into this too." Her, not by choice. After the last HOA president resigned, they told me to keep quiet and follow the program. "Me, who's they exactly?" She handed me a folder labeled SSG, Strategic Oversight. Inside were contracts, all signed by Suburban Sustain Group. The same logo I saw on the drums in the vault. Her, they're not just a consulting firm. They fund, manage, and control dozens of HOAs. Every board president signs a partnership agreement. Most never read the fine print. I skimmed the papers. SSG provided environmental maintenance oversight in exchange for a small annual compliance fee. But buried on page 6 was a clause. All infrastructural assets and test results conducted within partner zones remain property of Suburban Sustain Group. In other words, the land, the soil, even the water under your house, wasn't really yours. Me, so this wasn't just about a pool. It was part of a bigger network. Her, exactly. Blue Water was just their pilot program. When it failed, they rebranded and spread across counties. She pulled out another map. This one covered half the state. Red dots everywhere. Each one labeled with HOA names I recognized. "They own the infrastructure under every one of these," she said. "Drainage, sewage, water flow, electrical routing. They monitor everything." Me, you're telling me a fake environmental group owns our neighborhoods? Her, not fake. Hidden. She pointed at the map's corner. A corporate address in bold, Suburban Sustain Group, Regional Office, Norwell Industrial Park. That's when I knew where I was going next. The next morning, I drove there. Norwell Industrial Park was about an hour away, a maze of warehouses, loading docks, and trucks. Building number 47 matched the address. But there was no sign of Suburban Sustain Group. Just a small plaque reading, Novaland Property Services. The front door had a card scanner and a camera. No receptionist. So I circled to the back. A loading dock door was half open, and through the gap I saw shelves of boxes, some labeled SSG testing kits, others drainage flow reports. This was it. I slipped inside quietly, keeping to the shadows. The warehouse was huge. Rows of sealed drums, just like the ones under the vault. But these weren't blue. They were black. And every one was stamped with a date, this month. I crouched behind a crate and snapped photos. That's when I heard voices. 2 men in suits walked in through a side door, carrying clipboards. Man 1, shipment to Phase 9 goes out tonight. HOA compliance reports already signed. Man 2, what about the incident on Farmington Ridge? Man 1, containment handled. No leaks. The homeowners on a watch list now. Farmington Ridge. My neighborhood. I clenched my fists. They were talking about me. As they left, I followed quietly, staying far enough not to be seen. They exited through a hallway marked Authorized Staff Only. The corridor led to an office lined with glass windows overlooking the warehouse. Inside sat a man I didn't recognize, mid-50s, slick gray hair, expensive suit. A nameplate on his desk, Warren Keene, Regional Director. He was on the phone. I couldn't hear everything, but a few words cut through. Yes, he found the vault. No, the footage is contained. Yes, I know who he is. We're monitoring his IP already. I froze. He knew. He knew I was listening. Before I could retreat, his eyes flicked up to the glass. Straight at me. He smiled. A slow, deliberate smile. Then he hung up the phone and waved his hand slightly, like saying come in. For a moment, I considered running. But something in me, that stubborn anger, pushed me forward. I opened the door. Keene, Mr. Lawson. I was wondering when you'd show up. Me, you know my name. Keene, we know all our residents. Especially the noisy ones. His voice was calm, confident, too confident. He gestured to the chair opposite his desk. Keene, you've caused quite a stir, Ryan. The president speaks highly of your persistence. Me, she nearly drowned in your vault. Keene, a regrettable malfunction. Me, you're dumping chemicals under homes and calling it maintenance. Keene, we call it progress. You enjoy paved roads, functioning sewers, clean stormwater? That's us. You'd be surprised what it takes to keep modern neighborhoods alive. Me, by poisoning them. Keene, by managing what others can't. Most cities can't afford to fix their aging systems, so we do it for them. Quietly. He leaned forward. In return, we take small liberties. Easements. Test sites. Controlled zones. Nobody gets hurt, usually. I recorded every word. He didn't even care. He knew I was. Keene, go ahead, record it. You think anyone will believe you? You're a homeowner with a grudge against your HOA. They'll call you bitter, paranoid, unstable. Me, I've got proof. Keene, proof of what? That we fixed your drainage problem. He smirked. We own the inspectors, the boards, even the media contracts that shape public perception. You think you can outplay us? Me, watch me. He laughed softly. Keene, I like your spirit. Tell you what, you want your land clean, your name off our list, your life back? Walk away. Delete the files. And we'll pretend you never found the vault. Me, and if I don't? He leaned back, eyes cold. Then you'll understand why the last homeowner who tried this doesn't show up in county records anymore. That was my cue to leave. As I turned, his parting words followed me. Remember, Ryan, you're standing on our ground. Always have been. I drove straight to the county attorney's office and dropped off copies of every file. But 2 days later, the attorney went on leave. No reply to my calls. No case updates. And that night, my security cameras caught a car idling outside my property for almost an hour. I checked the footage the next morning. No license plate. No faces. Just the same black SUV I'd seen at the vault. I called the HOA president again. No answer. Then a text. They found me. Don't come here. That was the last time I heard from her. Her house went dark. A week later, it was listed under foreclosure. The records were sealed. They'd erased her, just like Keene said. I knew I had to go public. So I contacted a local investigative journalist, one who had covered HOA corruption before. A woman named Mira Carlson. We met at a diner off the highway, neutral ground. She listened quietly as I explained everything. The vault, the water tests, Suburban Sustain Group, Keene. I showed her the photos and the contracts. She looked up slowly. Ryan, do you realize what this means? If this is true, it's not just one HOA, it's an entire shadow network operating through residential communities. Me, that's why I need you to expose it. She nodded. I'll start digging. But be careful. If they're as powerful as you say, they won't let this go easily. For a few days, I felt like maybe the tide was turning. Mira kept me updated, said she'd found old corporate filings tying SSG to federal development grants. But then she missed our next meeting. Didn't answer calls. Didn't post any news stories. When I went to her office, it was empty. Her coworkers said she'd taken a sabbatical. Another person, gone. That night, I sat outside under the porch light, staring at the quiet street. Every house perfectly maintained. Every lawn identical. And yet, beneath all that order, rot was spreading. I realized the HOA's real purpose wasn't to enforce beauty. It was to enforce control. Every fence, every lawn, every compliance notice, just another way to keep us compliant. Because if we fight back, they erase us. At midnight, I got an email. No sender. No subject. Just a link. I hesitated, then opened it on a burner laptop. It led to a hidden site, encrypted, black background, white text. A message popped up. Ryan Lawson. We've been watching your investigation. You're not alone. There are others. Then a map appeared, dozens of blinking dots across the country, each labeled Incident Report. And under it, Suburban Sustain Group is just the beginning. Do you want to see who owns them? I clicked, and what loaded next made my blood run cold. A corporate chart, shell companies branching into shell companies, and at the top, a name I never expected. Vantage Urban Development, a federal partner of housing advancement. A government contractor. This wasn't just private corruption. It was federally backed. I leaned back, staring at the screen. Every HOA in America might be sitting on the same hidden network, collecting data, testing infrastructure, controlling residents, all under the guise of community development. And I had just scratched the surface. Before I could screenshot it all, the page refreshed. Everything vanished. Then 3 words appeared. They're coming for you. If you uncovered proof that your own government was backing secret HOA networks, would you go public or go into hiding?
Yes.
Comment below down arrow, because part 5 is where things get dangerously real. They were right. They really were coming for me. That night after the message appeared on my screen, I heard the sound of tires crunching over gravel outside my house. No headlights, just a slow crawl past my fence, then silence. When I stepped outside, the street was empty, but my mailbox was open, and inside was a single white envelope. No address, no stamp, just 3 words printed in block letters. Don't trust anyone. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound felt like someone walking on my roof. Every flash of light made my pulse race. By morning, I packed a bag, grabbed my files, and drove. No destination, just away. 2 hours later, I stopped at a rest area. Checked my phone, no signal. When I turned it back on, a text flashed instantly. If you want answers, follow the sign. And then the phone shut off again. I stared at the screen. No name, no number. Then I noticed something strange. A billboard down the highway ahead. Old and peeling, but I could still read it. Welcome to Clear Lake Estates, a suburban sustained community. That was my sign. Clear Lake Estates looked like every other perfect American neighborhood. Cookie-cutter homes, fresh mulch, smiling families. But it was empty. No cars, no people. Just a stillness that didn't feel right. I parked and walked down the main street. Flags fluttered. Sprinklers hissed. Birds chirped. But not a single person came outside. Until I reached the community center. The door was cracked open, and taped to it was another note. You're safe here. For now. Inside the building, the lights were dim. The air smelled like dust and coffee. A projector hummed in the corner, casting a faint glow over a group of people sitting around a table. At first, they looked like normal neighbors. A teacher, a retired cop, a mom with a baby carrier beside her chair. But when I stepped closer, I saw the same thing on each of their desks. Folders stamped with the logo, Suburban Sustain Group. Woman, you're Lawson, right? Me. Who are you? Man. The ones they erased. Welcome to the forgotten. They called themselves the retainers. A name taken from a legal term for people who retain rights after being stripped of ownership. Each of them had been part of a community tied to SSG. Each had lost something, a home, a family member, a job. All because they tried to speak out. Teacher, they blacklisted me after I questioned the HOA's chemical treatments. Said I was spreading conspiracy theories. Mom, my husband disappeared after filing a complaint about construction noise. The HOA said he moved away. I looked at the baby carrier. Empty. Her eyes said the rest. The group's leader was a man named Ethan Cross. Tall, quiet, ex-contractor for municipal infrastructure projects. He'd seen what SSG was really doing beneath the surface. Ethan, they're not managing neighborhoods. They're testing environmental manipulation, controlled flooding, soil conditioning, even micro-reservoir systems for private water supply. Me, you're saying they turn residential areas into test sites? Ethan, exactly. And they need HOAs to sign the paperwork that gives them legal access. Me, so every HOA that partners with SSG. Ethan, becomes a data farm. Literally. He pointed to a wall of maps, dozens of them. Each showed clusters of neighborhoods, all color-coded with different stages. Blue equals active, yellow equals expansion, red equals cleanup, and across the top, one chilling label. Urban Control Pilot Zones, Phase 10 Implementation. Ethan, they're turning suburbs into control grids. Each HOA collects resident data, water use, soil sensors, traffic movement, camera feeds, and feeds it back into SSG's system. Me, and the government's involved? Ethan, oh yeah, federal housing and urban contracts. SSG reports to Vantage Urban Development, and Vantage reports directly to the Office of Civic Stability. I laughed bitterly. Me, so my HOA was just a puppet for a national program. Ethan, exactly. You were their test subject. That's why they built the pool, to reroute the underground flow data through your property. Me, they called it maintenance. Ethan, it was monitoring. They were tracking how the altered drainage affected residential soil pressure. I stared at the map. All those red zones, meaning cleanup. Each one representing people like me who got too close. Me, so what now? How do we stop them? Ethan, we expose them. But carefully. If you go loud, you'll vanish like the others. He opened a metal case and pulled out a USB drive, labeled Project Ground Flow. Ethan, it's their master file, every contract, every board, every experiment. We've been collecting pieces for years. Me, then let's release it. Ethan, not yet. We need to decrypt the last block. And that's locked behind a local HOA president's credentials. Me, which one? Ethan, yours. I froze. Me, you mean? Ethan, the president from your neighborhood. She was the key holder. Me, she's gone. Ethan, no. She's missing, not gone. He opened a photo. A security feed still framed showing a van near her house. Time-stamped the night she disappeared. On the van side, Blue Water Maintenance. The same fake name they used for my HOA's construction cover. Ethan, if we find her, we unlock the system. We left that night. 3 cars. No phones. No lights. Ethan and I drove together, following back roads until we reached the edge of town. He said the van had been tracked to a decommissioned treatment facility north of the city, another SSG site. When we arrived, the place looked abandoned. Broken fence. Overgrown grass. No sound except wind whistling through pipes. But the gate lock was new. Inside, the smell hit first, chemical and stale water. Rust on every wall. A faint hum of machines still running somewhere underground. We followed the hum to a corridor lined with tanks, each one labeled Active Flow Calibration. The hum grew louder. Then we heard voices. We ducked behind a steel barrier as 2 men walked past in hazmat suits. Man 1, Phase 10 data upload tonight. The regional director wants all remaining files. Man 2, what about the test subject? Man 1, she's in containment. Transfer at 0300. My chest tightened. It was her. The HOA president. We waited until they left, then moved fast. Down another hallway. Through a door marked Authorized Personnel Only. Inside, a glass chamber stood in the middle of the room. Lights flickering. And there she was, sitting inside, alive, restrained, but conscious. Me, President. It's Ryan. Can you hear me? She lifted her head slowly. Her voice cracked through the speaker. Her, you shouldn't have come back. Me, we're getting you out. Her, they're watching, they never stop watching. Ethan worked the control panel. Wires sparked. An alarm blared. Ethan, doors jammed. Give me 30 seconds. Me, make it 10. The lights flashed red. Footsteps thundered in the hallway. I grabbed a wrench and jammed it between the chamber seals. The glass cracked. Ethan yanked a lever. And with a hiss, the door slid open. We pulled her out just as the security lights turned white. Motion sensors triggered. Cameras whirred to life. We ran. Down one hall. Then another. Sirens now echoing everywhere. I heard a voice boom through speakers. Cold, robotic, familiar. Mr. Lawson. Return the subject immediately. You're compromising a federal project. It was Keen. Me, they're tracking us. Ethan, forget it, we're almost out. We burst through a service exit. Into the night air. And drove like hell. Behind us, the entire facility lit up. Dozens of vehicles flooding the entrance. We didn't stop until dawn. We hid out in an abandoned cabin near the forest. No power. No phones. Just quiet. The president sat by the window, wrapped in a blanket. Her hands shaking. Me, what did they do to you? Her, tests. They said it was for water safety. But they made me sign things. I didn't understand. Ethan plugged in a small hard drive. Ethan, she's the key. Her ID unlocks Project Ground Flow. He loaded the files onto his laptop. Lines of code filled the screen. Then, access granted. The final folder opened. And we saw everything. Blueprints. Surveillance routes. Control protocols. But the last page froze us both. A document titled Phase 11 Conversion Plan. It listed coordinates, towns, counties, even cities, all marked for Phase 11. My town was first on the list. Ethan, they're about to activate full data control. Every HOA camera, every smart meter, every water sensor, all linked to one command network. Me, and if they flip that switch? Ethan, they'll own every suburb in America. Suddenly, the screen flickered. Lines of text appeared. Remote connection detected. Ethan, they found us. Before he finished, the laptop exploded with static. A voice came through the speaker. Keen, impressive. You've come a long way, Mr. Lawson. But this is where your compliance ends. Ethan slammed the laptop shut and yanked the battery. Smoke rose from the ports. Ethan, they're trying to fry our hardware. Me, then we do this the old way. We go public, physically. Ethan, then we'll need a distraction. The HOA president looked up. Her, use me. Me, no. You've been through enough. Her, they won't stop unless someone shows the world what they're hiding. I'll draw them out. Ethan hesitated, then nodded slowly. Ethan, we'll need to split up. Ryan, you take the files to the media. I'll cover you from their network side. Me, and if they catch us? Ethan, then at least we'll die loud. We left just before sunrise. The air thick with fog and fear. I had one goal, reach the journalist network Mira had worked for. Her last backup contact was 2 states away. If I could hand off the files before they tracked me, maybe this story would finally reach daylight. But something told me this was only the beginning. Because as I drove, the car radio, which I never turned on, came alive by itself. A distorted voice whispered through static. Mr. Lawson, the network never sleeps. If you discovered your HOA was part of a nationwide control system, would you fight or disappear quietly? Derelict house. Comment below, because part 6 will show what happens when the system fights back. The drive felt endless. Fog. Empty highways. Every mile, my heart pounded harder, like the sound of a countdown ticking inside my chest. The USB drive sat in the passenger seat, flashing its tiny red light. It held everything. Every file Ethan had decrypted. Every secret they'd buried under thousands of community management contracts. The whole machine, HOA boards, local officials, government partners, all tied together by one name. Suburban Sustain Group. And I was the one holding their nerve center in my hand. When the sun rose, I pulled off the road near an old gas station. No customers. No cameras I could see. Perfect. I used the payphone, an actual payphone, to call Myra's contact. Me, is this Kane? Voice. Who's asking? Me. Lawson. Ryan Lawson. Mira sent me. A pause. Then. Kane. Where are you? I told him. He hung up. 30 minutes later, a black Jeep rolled up. A man in his 40s stepped out, rough beard, camera bag over his shoulder. Kane, you've got her eyes. Come on, let's move. We drove in silence for an hour. He didn't ask questions, just kept checking the mirrors. Finally, we pulled into a warehouse on the edge of a dead industrial park. Inside, a small team worked behind covered windows, laptops, cameras, drones, stacks of hard drives. Independent journalists. The kind that still risked everything for truth. Kane, what did you bring? Me, everything. But they're watching. Kane, then we better be fast. He plugged the USB into a secure terminal, isolated from the internet. The screen filled with folders, maps, schematics, contracts. The journalists went silent as they scrolled. You could hear the air leave the room. Journalist, this can't be real. Kane, it's real. Look, property data, power usage, camera feeds, all routed to SSG servers. Me, and those servers linked to Vantage Urban Development, a federal contractor. Kane, they're monitoring entire towns under the guise of HOA maintenance. Me, exactly. Every water meter, every street cam. Even the HOA dues are funneled through shell banks. One woman looked up, pale. Her, if we publish this, they'll shut us down. Kane, then we publish it everywhere at once. That was the plan. Upload to multiple news outlets simultaneously, decentralized, timed release. Ethan was supposed to trigger the broadcast from his side of the network. Except he didn't respond. No message. No ping. Nothing. Me, he should have contacted me by now. Kane, maybe they caught him. Me, no. He would have sent a signal. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Suddenly, every monitor in the room flickered. Static. Then a flashing red alert. Network compromised. Lines of code started erasing themselves on the screen, files vanishing one by one. Kane, kill the connections. Tech, they're burning the data remotely. I yanked the USB out, but half the folders were already corrupted. Then one monitor went black, and a face appeared. Keen, Mr. Lawson, you were warned. You've made this far more complicated than it needed to be. Me, you think you can silence everyone? Keen, I don't need to. You'll do it for me, when you realize who's already working for us. And the screen cut to security footage, live feed from inside the warehouse. Someone was transmitting us. Everyone froze. Kane spun around. Kane, who the hell? One of the journalists, a quiet kid, barely 20, stood near the back. His phone blinked blue. A transmitter signal. Me, he's streaming. Kane, drop it. Before anyone could move, the kid bolted for the door. Kane chased after him. 2 gunshots echoed outside. Silence. Then Kane walked back in, blood splattered on his sleeve. Kane, he's gone. They knew where we were. We had minutes at best. The team scrambled to pack drives, wipe devices. I shoved the remaining files into my bag and turned to Kane. Me, I have to get to a public node, something they can't shut down. Kane, you'll never make it out. Me, I have to try. He nodded once. Kane, then take this. He handed me a small black device, a portable uplink. Kane, plug it into any terminal. It'll blast the signal across every social mirror on the grid. Me, will they trace it? Kane, absolutely. So run fast. I drove until night. Deserted roads. No lights. Stopped at a small town library, closed for the night. Broke the side window, slipped inside. The smell of old paper felt like peace for the first time in days. I sat at a public computer, plugged in the drive, and activated the uplink. The fan whirred as data poured out, all the files uploading simultaneously to encrypted archives, mirrors, backup networks. It was working. Until the screen glitched. System override. Remote access detected. The keyboard locked. The lights flickered. Then Keene's voice filled the speakers again. Keene, persistent, aren't you? You could have walked away, Mr. Lawson. Me, I still can. Keene, you think you're a hero. You're just another entry in our cleanup phase. The library's exterior lights turned red, emergency floodlights flicking on one by one outside. They were already here. I ran to the back exit, but a drone's red laser cut across the window. More lights appeared, SUVs rolling up quietly, no sirens. I bolted upstairs, ducked behind shelves. They entered below, boots on tile, radios whispering. Agent, visual on target's bag. He's still inside. I slipped the USB into my boot and crawled toward the ventilation duct. The library felt like a tomb. Each step echoed forever. Then I heard glass break, the front door. They were coming up fast. I pulled myself into the vent and slid the panel shut. Metal creaked. My breath froze. Below, flashlights scanned the aisles. Agent, we have authorization for lethal retrieval. Another, copy that. One light stopped under the vent. I didn't breathe. Then a noise outside, tires screeching. A van rammed the library fence. Shouts everywhere. And someone yelled my name. Voice. Ryan. Move. Ethan. I kicked the vent open and dropped down. Ethan was by the door, firing a flare toward the agents. Me, I thought you were gone. Ethan, they tried. Didn't work. Get in. We dove into the van as bullets shattered the windows. Ethan floored it. We tore down the street, drones buzzing overhead. Me, the upload. Ethan, partial success. Some files made it to the net. Enough to make noise. Me, and the rest. Ethan, they'll try to bury it. But people are already watching. Within hours, clips began circulating online, fragments of Project Groundflow, contracts, maps, proof that HOAs across the country were part of a surveillance grid. But mainstream media stayed silent. Every news anchor called it misinformation. And yet, neighborhoods started panicking. People demanded to see their HOA's hidden agreements. Some boards resigned overnight. Others doubled their security. We'd lit the match. But the fire was just starting. 2 days later, we hid in an abandoned diner off Route 16. The president, now recovering, joined us again. She watched the viral chaos unfold on Ethan's laptop. President, they'll paint you as terrorists. Ethan, good. At least they'll say our names. Me, we need more proof. Something undeniable. Ethan, there's one more layer we didn't touch. Phase 11 Command Hub. Me, where? Ethan, Washington. Their headquarters. The air went cold. Me, you're saying we go there? Ethan, you wanted to finish this. That's where it ends. Before we left, I opened my phone, an unregistered burner. One new text. No number. Just 3 words. They're waiting inside. We reached the outskirts of D.C. by dawn. Every street felt watched. Cameras followed every step. Ethan parked 2 blocks from the Vantage Urban Development Building, a sleek glass tower with tinted windows and no logo. We walked in like we belonged there. Suits, fake badges, calm expressions. The lobby guard nodded us through. Security scanners hummed. The elevator doors closed. And for a moment, it felt like we were walking straight into the heart of the machine. Floor 47, Operations Command. The doors opened to a cold white hallway. Rows of monitors displayed real-time footage from communities across the country. Suburbs, cul-de-sacs, backyard pools, all under live surveillance. Ethan stared in disbelief. Ethan, every HOA camera in America, all connected. Me, they weren't lying about control. At the center of the room stood a glass console glowing blue. Phase 11. Arming sequence. Ethan, this is it. He plugged in a decryption drive. The system asked for a biometric scan. Me, it wants an access key. Voice from behind. I have one. Keen stepped out of the shadows. No guards. No panic. Just calm. Keen, I knew you'd come. You're predictable, Ryan. Like every angry citizen before you. Me, you call this citizenship? You're turning people into property. Keen, we're stabilizing chaos. Do you know how many suburban disputes end in violence? How many bankruptcies, lawsuits, fires? We're preventing collapse. Me, by enslaving everyone. Keen, by managing them. He placed his hand on the console. The screen changed. Phase 11. Activation ready. Ethan, don't do it. Keen, you can't stop it. The system is already awake. I lunged forward, tackling him. The console flashed. Sequence interrupted. Alarms blared. Ethan ran to the controls, typing furiously. Ethan, I can trigger a purge. It'll erase every phase file, all their data. Keen, you'll destroy thousands of lives worth of records. Ethan, better that than their freedom. He hit the final key. The screens flickered, one by one, feeds vanished. Neighborhoods went dark. Data streams collapsed. Project ground flow terminated. Keen lunged toward the power switch, but I stopped him. He stared at me, furious. Keen, you think you won? You just created chaos. When the system fails, people beg for control. Me, then let them beg, but not from you. Security burst in. Ethan grabbed my arm. Ethan, time to go. We ran down the emergency stairwell as explosions rippled above. The building's glass cracked from the data purge overload. When we hit the street, alarms echoed through the city. Screens on buildings flickered with error messages. Network failure. HOA access revoked. We made it to the bridge before sunrise. Sirens behind us. The first real wind of freedom in months. Ethan looked back at the city. Ethan, we did it. Me, for now. He handed me the last remaining drive, the untouched backup. Ethan, keep it safe. In case they rebuild. I nodded. And as the sun broke over the skyline, I realized they'd never stop. Because control doesn't die. It adapts. And somewhere out there, someone else was already building Phase 12. If the system gave you safety at the cost of your freedom, would you accept control, or fight it like Ryan did? Comment your choice below. Fire. It's been 6 months. Since the night the system fell. Or at least, that's what I thought. The morning after the explosion, the city looked like a different planet. No screens. No sirens. Just silence. The news called it a catastrophic data breach. They said a rogue network had hijacked the nation's HOA infrastructure. They blamed hackers. They blamed me. They didn't call it Project Groundflow. They called it a security incident in suburban management systems. And just like that, the truth was gone again. I've been living quiet since then. Off-grid, outside the suburbs. An old trailer near the lake where it all started. No Wi-Fi. No cameras. Just trees, water, and noise from frogs instead of drones. Sometimes I wonder if peace feels like freedom. Or just another kind of surveillance, the one inside your own head. Every night, I sit by the fire and scroll through what's left of the old files. Not on a device, on paper. I printed what I could before it all burned. Maps, names, coordinates. One page caught my eye last week. A header I'd never noticed before. Phase 12, Pilot Region. The location was circled. Middle of nowhere. A small desert town called Sandridge Estates. At first, I thought it was a dead project. Something they never built. But last week, a video went viral on a small blog. A woman filming her neighborhood meeting. She was yelling at her HOA president, saying their new smart sprinklers were spying on water usage. That their street cameras were scanning license plates for maintenance data. It looked familiar. Too familiar. The HOA logo on her mailbox was different now. Not SSG. Not Vantage. It read, Civics Management. That's when I knew. They didn't die. They just changed names. And they were already testing the next version of the system. I packed what little I had. Laptop. USB drive. Camera. And the old recorder Ethan left me. He'd vanished after DC. No calls. No messages. The president too. Gone underground. Maybe still alive, maybe not. Maybe safer than I was. The road to Sandridge was endless. No GPS. Just a printed map. Gas stations got fewer. Cell towers disappeared completely. By the time I reached the sign, Welcome to Sandridge Estates, a civic smart community, it felt like déjà vu. Perfect lawns. Uniform mailboxes. Solar streetlights that blinked like eyes. And that same eerie silence that every HOA neighborhood carried. Like everyone was hiding behind curtains. I rented a small cabin on the edge of the community. No one asked for ID. Just a smile, a waiver, and a chip card that synced with the system. At night, the streetlights dimmed automatically. And that's when the hum began. A low, electric hum, like power running through the ground. I followed it, down the street, past trimmed hedges and identical houses. It led to the community park, closed after dark. A new sign read, Civics Infrastructure, do not enter. So, of course I entered. Behind the playground, the grass dipped into a small hill. Half hidden beneath the soil, a metal hatch with the Civics logo. The same drainage design. The same structure they'd built on my land. But this time cleaner, smarter, and way more dangerous. I lifted the panel. Inside, humming machines, blinking lights, fiber cables running underground. A new drainage system. Except this one wasn't collecting water. It was collecting data. Pressure sensors, thermal lines, signal relays, all feeding into one glowing blue box marked Phase 12, active. I started recording everything. Footage, coordinates, voice notes. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. Voice, you shouldn't be down here. I turned. A woman in a white Civics uniform stood there, clipboard, badge, and a calm, corporate smile. Me, just checking the drainage. HOA property, right? Her, you're not registered as a member. Me, maybe your system's glitching. She tilted her head. That same keen-style arrogance. Like she knew she didn't need to raise her voice to have power. Her, we learned from ground flow. This one doesn't make mistakes. Me, you mean it doesn't leave witnesses. Her, depends who's watching. She pressed something on her tablet. The blue box pulsed faster. Then the ground shook, a deep rumble rising from below. Her, you triggered a failsafe. Me, good. That means I found the right place. I ran toward the exit, clutching the recorder. She shouted something. I didn't look back. By the time I hit the street, alarms echoed across the neighborhood. Every porch light flickered red. Houses locking automatically. Garage doors sealing. Voices on intercoms repeating, Civics maintenance protocol engaged. I dove behind a parked van and called the one number I swore I'd deleted. Ethan answered on the first ring. Ethan, Ryan. Me, they're back. Ethan, where? Me, Sandridge. They're calling it Civics now, Phase 12. Ethan, I told you this would happen. Me, I've got footage. But they're locking the town down. Ethan, can you upload? Me, no network. Ethan, then you need to find their uplink. Every smart HOA has one central relay. Me, and after that? Ethan, after that, we burn it all again. I sprinted toward the community office, the only building still glowing in the blackout. Inside, rows of screens showed house feeds, street cams, heat maps, the same control center design from before, but sleeker. And in the center, a new face on the main monitor. Keen, older, colder, alive. Keen, you really can't let go, can you, Mr. Lawson? Me, I watched you die. Keen, you watched a building collapse. The system never needed me to live. It just needed me to evolve. He leaned closer to the camera, eyes like ice. Keen, you thought you ended ground flow. But you only cleared the field. Civics was built on your ashes. Me, then I'll burn it again. I ripped the main terminal open and shoved my drive into it. The screen flashed, unauthorized access. But Ethan's voice came through my earpiece. Ethan, you're in. Hold it for 30 seconds. The monitors glitched. Streams went static. Keen's face froze mid-sentence. Ethan, uploading virus now. Me, you sure this works? Ethan, let's find out. The system screamed, alarms blaring, red lights flashing everywhere. Every streetlight in Sandridge flickered out. Sprinklers erupted, flooding lawns. Security drones spun in circles, crashing into fences. And then, silence. Total blackout. When I stepped outside, the whole town was dark. Except for one house. The model home at the entrance. Its lights were still on. Its windows glowing blue. I walked closer, slow, hand on the camera. Inside, rows of monitors. Every one showing me. Different angles. Different nights. My trailer. My fire pit. My face. They'd been watching me the entire time. I smashed the nearest screen. The others flickered. New text appeared. Welcome back to the network, Ryan. Phase 12, complete. The house went dark. I stood there in silence, realizing maybe I hadn't destroyed it. Maybe I'd activated it. Because the system didn't just survive. It adapted. And maybe that was always the plan. The next morning, I left Sandridge before sunrise. The whole place looked peaceful again. Lawnmowers humming. Kids on bikes. Sprinklers misting like nothing happened. On the radio, a news anchor spoke cheerfully. Civic Smart Communities announced a new sustainability upgrade this week, promising safer and greener living for all residents. I turned it off. Because some battles you can't win. You can only warn people about them. When I got home, I uploaded the footage, every second of it. Sent copies to 100 online forums. And then I buried the drive by the lake. If someone finds it one day, maybe they'll know where to start looking. Maybe they'll do what I couldn't. Because freedom isn't about escaping the system. It's about knowing when it's already inside you. That night, as I sat by the fire, the frogs went quiet. The hum returned, low, mechanical, familiar. I looked toward the water. Tiny ripples danced under the moonlight. And for the first time in months, the reflection looked like static. If you found out your neighborhood was part of Phase 12, would you stay and fight, or disappear before they find you? Comment your answer below, backhand index pointing down fire.